Hello everyone, welcome again in another episode. Today we are going to be continuing talking about shading, and today is kind of like special session. We have a real example as you see here on my tablet. So we are going to talk about shading when it comes to fabric material or silk material, any kind of fabric, because it required some specific techniques when it comes to shading and lighting and so on. So as you see here, I just prepared very simple drawing for the for our carton, for our fabric. As you see, I just like defined the lines, how the shape looks like in advance, because in this session we are going to talk about shading only. So as you see here, just as a very quick inspiration, or quick hint how to draw a fabric or any kind of blanket. The way of doing it is actually very easy. So as you see here, you can clearly see this blanket has very sharp lines, like very sharp lines that you can clearly see, like for example this one and this one and this one and this shape and this direction and so on and so on. So the very first thing you want to do before starting shading or anything is actually to put few lines that defines the shape of your curtain, which is actually what I'm doing now. And these lines are going to be very light. As you see here, I'm not really pressing hard on my pencil because most of this fabric shape is going to be constructed, is going to be built with our shading. You will see also in today's session, okay? But nevertheless, it is recommended and it's helpful to put some lines to keep your shape under control, and yeah, just to have an idea where your shape or your drawing is going to be. So these shape, for example, these lines that I put here are more than enough actually. So we can now start shading. As you see, it's very simple, very light lines. Then we can say the shape looks nice, and now we can really start shading. So as you see here, so the first thing you can do is actually check the main 2 points that control your shape, which are this one, and this one, actually where the blanket is hanging. Yeah, so these are here. This is the first point, and this is the second point. And from these points, you can start drawing your lines following the exact shape, like for example this line, then you put it here, and so on and so on and back. So so as you see now, the amount of lines are more than enough. Now we can actually start shading, which is going to be our session today. So to start shading, as we talked in the last session, in the previous sessions, lightings mean we have a light source. In this example, you can clearly see that the light is coming from this area, from the left. So it means our light's coming is going to be, or needs to be, matching this picture. Why I'm using an image today? Because we need this reference. It's kind of difficult to really, especially if you are a beginner, to really draw and shade a blanket completely from your imagination. It's going to be a little bit difficult. That's why I decided to use this today. Okay, so once you have your lines done and you have your shape, basic shape, yeah, now you can start looking at your image. If it's an image or real blanket, doesn't matter, the same actually. The same approach applies for both scenarios, okay? So the first thing you are gonna ask yourself, where is your light coming from? From this area. Where are the shadow areas? The shadow areas you can clearly see actually. This one, and this area is shaded, this area is dark, this area is dark, this area is dark. And once you figure out, you can start applying that into your drawing. Like for example, this area is dark, it means I can use HB. We are not deep diving into like darker tones like B4 or B6. You can start with HB. Okay, this is a good recommendation. So this is the first shadow area that I want to do. So we can use hatching, which is 1 line or 2 lines. It's up to you. Very, very quick and very rough without pressing too much, okay, on your pencil. So moving on to the next area. This area is a little bit less shaded. This area is also dark. So we are kind of like breaking down our objects. Where dark is, we apply it, and where bright is, where the light is hitting, we leave it as it is for now, okay? And here is a little bit darker, as you see. We also need to apply that, which is going to be this area. Now I can press a little bit, just tiny bit on my pencil, because I need this a little bit darker tone, you know. And moving on, then I have this kind of like rectangle, if you see it here. Very simple areas, yeah, like I'm just like in a very simple way breaking down our shape. Where dark is, I start to add tones one by one all over the blanket, okay? So moving on. Then the next one, which is this area. Oh, sorry. So I move on to the next area, which is this one. As you see here, I'm now using only hatching, which is like one line direction, not cross hatching, yeah, like different lines. We are going to add some different lines like cross hatching afterwards, okay? But first, we need to really define where the shadow areas are, yeah? Moving on to the next one, which is this one. Then I move on to the next one, which is this one. Then this one. Then this small one. As you notice, I started with the biggest one, which is actually this area and this area. These are the biggest dark area in my blanket, yeah? Moving on to the smaller and smaller one, because it's easier this way if you do it. So like starting from the biggest area, shaded area, then moving up or down to the smallest one by one. This way you keep controlling your drawing and nothing will go wrong if you do it in that order, yeah? Then we go to this one, this line. It's gonna be very dark line here. Then this one, which is going to be here, as you see. This is also going to be dark, but not as dark as the other, as you see here. I add a very simple tone, okay? Very light. I'm not pressing too much on my pencil. Maybe next one as well, and so on and so on. So the next step is actually, let me just add this one as well. This is also pretty dark. maybe this one as well. These small details you can always add it at the very end. It's not a big deal. So I don't recommend you to, when you start shading it, to deep dive into too much details like this one or this very small area or this small area. I don't recommend it. Why? Because you can always add that at the very end of your drawing. Yeah. So now as a block, like as blocking down our blanket, it's actually more than enough. More than enough. Now we move to the next one, which is actually the rule is very simple when it comes to fabric and silk and blanket. Yeah. We move to the next darker area, which is like the less darker area, which are going to be that one and that one. Not a very bright where our light hits, but maybe like gray, not white, because we start with the kind of like dark gray. Now we move on to the next one, which is like, for example, this one. Then I start putting very like even lighter tone. When I add this lighter tone and I notice it's kind of similar to this one, yeah, which doesn't match the real image, then I can maybe go over again to the dark area as I did at the very beginning and add some tone a little bit to make it like kind of like this contrasty, you know, this transitions between right and left, and so on and so on. So drawing blanket is actually easy and difficult at the same time. Difficult because the shape itself is difficult, but easy if you broke it down in the right order, in a good way, in a very simple way. You will notice it's not that difficult. Actually, it's really easy, even for beginner. Trust me, you can do it. So as you notice here, when I added this tone, I noticed that I missed this very dark area here. Now I can add it. There is no harm. So if you miss an area, you can always add it. It's okay. And this one as well. Then maybe we can add as well as that. So this here, the gray area, white gray is kind of like a bright gray all over this here. Then the same goes for this one. Very light, okay? I'm not pressing too much on my pencil because now we are still breaking down our blanket into very basic and simple shapes, yeah? Shading blankets and fabric is actually all about adding layers of on top of layers, on top of layers, and so on and so on. Of course, not randomly, but you have to know where you are adding your tone and how hard is your tone, like dark gray or a little bit less gray or brighter, and so on and so on. Yeah. So we missed also this one, as you see here, this line. Now we can also add it. It's okay. Moving on to this area. And here we need very, very bright, because here the light is hitting. Don't forget about it, okay? So this needs to be really, really bright. Here, and this surface, which is actually this one. So maybe I can just reduce a tiny bit. Yeah. Then now we can add some more details, like another tone, then another tone. Here also can be darker a little bit. As you see, I'm like walking through all of the blanket at the same time. Sometimes here, sometimes here. I don't finish one area completely and then jump to the next one, This is not recommended at all. So you need to move like smoothly with all of your drawing at the same time, because only this way you keep your drawing in one harmony, you know. So this can be darker as well, which is actually this area. Now I started to move to use cross hatching, which is actually like different line directions. Like instead of only this way, I'm using now this way. And so on and so on. Now another line here, another tone, sorry. As you see, we started like gradually see the shape of our blanket, where dark is, where bright is, where the light is hitting. By the way, it's becoming like it gradually and very slowly visible for us. Here a little bit darker. I check all over when I am moving. I constantly check, yeah, if my shape is correct, if an area is not dark enough. As I'm doing here, I add another tone. And so on. So there is one important point I want to mention here, that this blanket, as you see, is hanged on the wall by these 2 points. So it means these lines have direction, and this direction needs to be followed. Actually, what I mean by direction is actually this is actually so this area direction is actually to the lower part, to the bottom part, because it's going actually down. This one, so this shape is going this area, which means let me just get help with my digital pencil. So as you see here, this is actually, this area has direction, which is this one, like to the right, because the blanket is going this way. Yeah, this area has a direction of like to the top and to the lower part, because it's going this way. As you see, this one is going this way, 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 and this one is going this way, and this one is this way, this one again to the bottom, and this one to the bottom as well, and so on and so on. And these directions needs to be followed. Actually, these needs to be followed, because only by doing that you will get the realistic feeling of the blanket of your drawing. So how do you follow that? The rule is not so complicated. So you need to actually consider that this smoothness and bump feeling, you need to get it with shading, by shading. So which means, let me demonstrate here this area, okay, which is actually this one. So this area is very dark, as you see, and it starts here. Then I start pressing my pencil and release my pencil gradually, so on. So as you see here, we started to have this bump, and this is what I meant by direction. So we need to follow the direction of the blanket. Only this way you will be able to really get very nice looking realistic blanket or fabric or whatever you are drawing. Yeah, we are talking about this material today. So I start pressing my pencil, then I start releasing my pencil whenever I go to the light direction, which is actually this one. Yeah, so the same applies everywhere in our blanket, literally everywhere. So this one as well, this area as well. So when I add a tone, I can see now it's too hard, this contrast, right? So I can break it down by adding another tone, which is lighter. So I press my pencil a little bit less and move on. Don't get confused. It sounds difficult, but it's not as difficult as you might think. If you practice and do it again and again, you will get it actually. It's not that complicated. Because the physical shape that we are drawing, it has construction behind it, yeah? And if you follow the construction, how the shape is constructed, you will be able actually to do it and to draw exactly the same, even 100%. Of course, get it 100% matching, it will take a lot of time. And this is not our goal today. Our goal today is actually get the idea how to shade a blanket. Yeah. And so on. And the same goes for here. As you see, I'm still using HB, by the way. Okay, and I am really now starting to get closer to HB limitation. So very soon I'm gonna need a little bit darker pencil, which is HB or sorry, B2 or B4. Yeah. Before moving on to the next one, I try to really apply this direction rule as I told you, because as you see here, this contrast is way too dark, too sharp. Yeah, so we need to break it because this smoothness needs to be also reflected here. Nevertheless, we have sometimes very dark area, the very contrasted area, which is this one and this one and this one and this one, which is caused by the light, and we need also to reflect that here. So we have two kind of shading here: the smooth that gives us the smooth of the shape of the blanket, and the second one, which is actually the casted shadow caused by the light. So we need to do this both. Yeah. So now we move on a little bit, adding another tone. Then here is a little bit too dark, so it's still not dark enough for in my drawing. So I add another. As you see here, it's only about adding layers again and again and again, and not adding layers randomly. You have to check where you are adding your layers, and it needs to be at the same area as your object. If it's real or image, it doesn't matter. So the same applies for both scenario. Okay. The same goes for this one. We need really hard tone here, as you see. I'm getting really close now to the limitation of HB, so I need to change it very soon actually. The same goes for this one. If you feel comfortable, you can also add some small details meanwhile, okay? Meanwhile, not everywhere, like as I did here, okay? It helps me to understand the depths of our object. Only if you feel comfortable. If you don't, then you can leave it at the very end, which is also not wrong. You can do that. Here can be a little bit darker. And here as well. The same goes for this one. So this needs to be really dark now and start to fade out as long as I go closer to the light. Yeah. As I said, we start pressing our pencil, and the closer we go to the direction, the light direction, the less I press my pencil. Okay. The rule is not so complicated, I would say. Then another tone. As you see, I started now using way too many line directions, like really cross-hatching now. Yeah. This also as well. As you see, this one. Then another tone, again darker a little bit. Don't spend too much time looking at your drawing only. You have to jump back and forth, back and forth. Look once here, once there, once here, once there, and so on. You have to always keep your your eye constantly moving, okay? Because why I'm saying this, because if you spend and forget yourself and spend looking at your drawing way too long, like for 10 or 15 minutes, you might make a mistake without even recognizing. So I highly recommend you, which is actually the very professional rule here in drawing. Any artist will recommend you the same. If you are drawing a real physical object like this one, you have to always keep your eye moving back and forth, to avoid doing any mistake and continue doing this mistake without even recognizing. This is way too important, okay? Back and forth, back and forth. This way, the chance of making mistake will be much lower. Try it out, you will see the difference. Here can be a little bit darker, and so on. So now I can feel that the HB isn't giving me the hard tone that I need anymore. So now I can move to B4 or B2. Both are okay. I will use B4. Yeah. So switching from HB to B4 will not change anything in our approach, by the way. Exactly the same goes on. So where I need a dark area, I start adding even darker area. Darker and darker. Don't forget always to look there to compare if you are doing it right, if you are putting your tone in the right direction, in the right area. This is way too important, okay? This can be also added here, just a little bit darker. When you feel that you have very hard lines or contrast, try to break them down or to break this hardness by adding different line in different direction. You know, this way you keep your shape smooth, and it needs to be smooth because as you see the silk or the fabric that we are drawing is way too smooth. So we need to take that also into consideration. Yeah. So moving on. Maybe this as well. Yeah, it can have some darker tone as well. As you see, I'm using now cross hatching to really smooth out our object, our blanket, because as I said previously, it needs to be smooth. Yeah. Now I feel that I spend too much time on this area, I jump to another area, okay? Because as I said previously at the very beginning of our session, you need to move with your drawing all over it at the same time. Don't finish an area and completely forget the other one, because if you do so, it's gonna be very difficult to get your drawing in the same harmony. It's gonna be difficult. Yeah. So another tone and another one as well here. You can't see me on the camera, of course, only my hand, but my eyes are always back and forth, jumping. So from the drawing to the image, from the drawing to the image, back and forth. This is very important. Then this area is really dark. You can follow the drawing here, so follow my hand and compare to the drawing. You will notice that actually I'm following exactly where the dark areas are. I'm gonna add or increase them or decrease them based on this output, on this image, sorry. It can be a little bit darker here, it's okay. Just add some more details. The same goes for this one. And here can be a little bit darker, just tiny bit, and start to fade out as long as I go down, because it adds some more details into our drawing, so it gives it something, you know. Then I move to another area, this one. Maybe adding some more details here to give me this feeling. Here it can be a little bit darker. The same as well as for here. So jumping back and forth, wherever I feel that I'm missing some details, I start adding more tones, more and more. Yeah. Even B4 is going to coming close to the limitation of the dark tone that it can give us. So maybe I switch to, let's take B6. Yeah, I took B6, just a little bit darker. Yeah, because I need some dark tones that I'm not really getting with the B4. And so on. Again, another tone, another tone. Now, as you see, we started to really notice, or like kind of have the feeling that the light is really coming from this area, right? So another direction, like cross hatching, sometimes this way, sometimes this way, because this way you can smooth out your shaded area without having any like strong contrast that doesn't match the material of our object, because it needs to be smooth, as we said. This can be a little bit darker as well over here. Maybe we go a little bit higher to B10. B10 is a little bit risky to use because it gives you really hard tones, but if you feel okay about it, you can try it out, as you see, because now it actually gives me the very dark areas, or the very dark tones that actually exist in our drawing. See, because we need that to add some more details, nicer details into our drawing, as you see here. The same goes for this one, this area, because it's really dark if you compare to the real image. Adding tone after tone in different line direction. This way you really keep your shape under control, and you start to have this realistic feeling of our blanket. I hope this session is not taking so long. If so, yeah, excuse me for that. I know my sessions are a little bit longer than usual, but for the sake of really explaining everything, like trying to really cover everything that needs to be covered, especially for beginner, yeah, that's the reason actually why I do my sessions a little bit longer, because I would like to really explain as much as I can and to make it really possible for you, even if you are a beginner, to draw anything you want, or to even like at least start if you are willing to draw. So this is actually my main goal, is to make drawing easier for you. And yeah, to make it possible. Because as I said, and I always say in my sessions, drawing requires some talent. Yes, that's true. But nevertheless, there are some rules that you can actually follow to start drawing, to improve your drawing, and maybe to get an area you have never imagined before that you would be able to do. So just grab a paper, grab a pencil, any pencil you have, and just try applying these rules one by one that I'm showing you, and you will see results. I am 100% sure. So this area can be a little bit darker. As you see, I'm moving my hand and changing the line, the shading line direction constantly, because this way I get my shape really smooth out, you know? The same goes for this area. So adding more tones. I check constantly where I feel that I'm still missing some details. I add over and over and over again. More tones. Moving on. And here is a little bit dark, so we need to darken it a little bit. As you see here dark, but here at this corner it's a little bit brighter. So I put a very simple line here to really help me to keep this shading area in a proper way. So as you see, because I need this light area to be a little bit brighter, because it's actually receiving some light from the left side, yeah? That's the reason. Some more details. As you see, I'm constantly moving. Yeah, I'm not spending one area. I'm not spending one time on one area as I did here, for example. Do you see? So this area is completely missed now because we completely ignored it and didn't work on it at all. And if you compare this area to the whole blanket, the harmony is completely different. It's not in the same harmony anymore. So, and that's the reason why I said you need to move with your drawing at the same time all over it. Yeah, but for this time it's not going to be a big problem because we can fix it by adding just tone. Actually, here is where our blanket ends, so I'm not going to add too much details into that area because we have here enough area to work on. So again, different line direction. So I'm gonna leave it this way, it's okay, because we have enough areas here to work on and details to add. So maybe I can crack it up a little bit by choosing B12. If you want to use this kind of very dark tone pencil, B12 or B10, you have to be a little bit careful because it can damage the light area, the bright area in your drawing very fast, because the tone that B12 uses or gives you is way too dark, as you see here. So I'm using it just to really add some small details wherever I need, like this one or here, just a little bit darker, you know, or maybe this one. Maybe at the bottom as well, we need some tone here. As well as here, it can be a little bit darker. So I go back to HB because I need very light tone here. So there is no harm to switch between HB, B2, B4, B12, back and forth. So it's totally okay. So if you are, like, for example, at the very beginning, as you saw, we use HB. So once you are done using HB and you need a different tone, which is 2B or B2 or B4, and you need to switch back to HB, it doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot switch back to HB. So you can always use it. It's totally fine. The same as well as here. So I switch back to HB a little bit to smooth out our blanket, just tiny bit. Now I stop for a second and look at the blanket, the real blanket, all over it. I check, am I missing something big? And the answer is yes, which is actually this area is completely black. Do you see? Not black, but completely dark. Here, in compared to my drawing, this area is way too bright. So we need to have this hard cut. Do you see? This one, which I'm missing. So we need to do that. See? This hard cut that I need. Why it's recommended to stop every once and then, as like every few minutes to check your drawing, because it helps your eyes capture any mistake that you are doing without even recognizing, as I did here. Yeah, so this area needs to be darker, as I am doing now. And now it's becoming matching to the real one. It's becoming closer and closer now, as you see. So the shadow area, the light area, the lines might not be 100% matching with the blanket that we are drawing. I am aware of this, yeah? Why? Because for the sake of our session today, we cannot do that. Otherwise, it's gonna take forever, like hours and hours of session, which is not the case. And this is not my goal. My goal is actually to show you how to draw and to shade a blanket. It doesn't matter what kind of shape does this blanket have. Yeah. So this is actually my intention. This is a little bit hard, so the contrast is a little bit hard, so maybe I can break it a little bit to add this bumpy feeling, as we said before. Yeah, and so on. Of course, with drawing fabric, you can spend as much time as you want, really, literally, because you can keep adding more and more and more details as much as you want. So it depends on really how much time you want to spend on it. When you start feeling, okay, I can stop there, or continue adding some more details, as I'm doing now. Just like few stroke, which gives me this kind of like smooth feeling, you know. And with my stroke, as you see here, I'm just doing stroke now, like kind of like hard stroke. And it's not really hard stroke, but actually stroke is it starts dark and start to fade out. Why? Because as you see here, it's like wishing star. So I start putting this stroke very hard. I press really hard on my pencil and I release the pencil. You can try it. It's actually good practice. The more I go out, the more I release my pencil. And the trick is actually here. The way I'm doing it, you remember the directions that we talked about, like each shape here has direction. I'm actually, as you see, with my stroke, I'm following the direction of this blanket. Like for example, let me just demonstrate here. So this way, I'm doing my stroke this way because this has this direction. This way, so this area, I'm going to do my stroke, you will see, this way because it has this direction. This way as well, you can do it this way, stroke, because it has this direction. And the same goes for this one. You can do stroke this way because it has this direction, and so on and so on. You got the idea, right? So moving on. See, very quick. Not everywhere, like just somewhere where you really feel that it needs it, you know? You have to be careful because you have to be aware where you are doing your stroke. And the intensity of how much you are pressing your pencil. Yeah, so the same goes for this one. You see, I'm constantly and unintentionally actually changing the direction of my stroke based on the direction of the shape itself. That's why I said at the very beginning, the direction of the shape is way too important, more than you think, because this is actually what gives you the realistic feeling of, once you understand of the blanket, once you understand the construction of it, you will be able to do it. It's not impossible, trust me, you can try it out. Maybe here a few stroke. Again, up, because I'm following the direction of my shape. I'm not inventing any new direction, okay? I'm just following the direction of my surfaces. See? This is too hard, but it's okay. And I add another tone here, because we can. It looks good. As you see, I didn't really add too much tones here, because I always have to keep in mind that my light is actually coming from this area. So really these surfaces needs to stay a little bit bright, even maybe completely white, without even any pencil tone, any drawing on top of it, you know, because sometimes it helps to really have the feeling that the light is really hitting very hard from that area. Now I stop for a second again and I check how does it look like. It does look good, and as I said previously, we can keep adding as much details as we want, but we are not going to do that because we don't want to do like super long session. Like 1 hour is more than enough to cover all informations. So I would say we are almost done. Let me just check, one last check. Yeah, it's good. Maybe here can be a little bit darker to have the feeling that the light is really hitting from the left. So maybe we can have some stroke here going up, or this direction as well. As you see, I'm doing this because, let me just explain quickly. Yeah, I'm doing this because actually this area is going bumpy this way, and that's why I'm following the direction. You don't have to do the strokes, yeah? You don't necessarily have to do it. I'm just showing you that to understand what I meant by following the direction of your surfaces and understand them. Once you understand the surfaces, how they are, in which direction each surface goes, then you will be able to really break down and shade in a much better way. I can promise you that, yeah, because I know how important this is. So allow me to stop right here. So as you see, today we covered shading, continuing about talking about shading, and we took this blanket as an example. So this is the way of uh, shading fabric. There are several ways. I'm not saying there is one way to do it. There are several ways of doing it. Of course, some people, for example, uses this like smudge pencil that adds this smoothness, as you see here. It kind of like breaks this hard contrast in your drawing from the dark to the light area, which is also not wrong to use it, but I intentionally didn't use it to show you that you can actually draw and shade very smooth surfaces without even using it. Using it is very helpful. I'm not saying you shouldn't use it. Yeah, as you see here, it actually breaks this like hardness of our lines and add this smooth feeling into our drawing. So you can use it if you like, but yeah, I intentionally didn't use it because I wanted to show you that using the shading techniques in the right way, you will be able to draw and shade anything you want, literally anything you want. So this was it for today. Try it out. Don't think it's difficult. As I said, drawing fabric is difficult, but at the same time easy, or not so difficult. I wouldn't say easy. It's not so difficult because once you break down the construction and the base shape of your object, you will be able to do it. You will see. So try it out, enjoy it, and thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.